That was a little bit of a different start to the Piano Ninja Tricks podcast, not my typical opening music. I'm recording this on the eve of the United States election. We don't know the results yet, and I'm on edge more than a little bit. And so I need music to calm me and center me. And for those of you listening but aren't watching on YouTube, I'm wearing a blue sweater. I'm not in my Piano Ninja costume. Just needed to do what I need to do to feel comfortable, and somehow I'll be able to get some sleep, possibly tonight. So by the time this airs, we might know the election results. I don't know. No one knows. So here I am. Music is so comforting in times of stress, in times of uncertainty, in times that I need calm. And for those of you who missed it, I did music for election stress on YouTube Live, and I'll share the link to that below. You can listen to the replay anytime you'd like. So here I am talking about my favorite subject, which is how to make things easier for you at the piano. Before I do that, I want to remind you that my checklist is still available to you for free. It is a focused practice checklist letting you make check marks on steps that you take to make an hour's worth of progress in 20 minutes. So that is at lisaspector.com/practice. And so today's episode, I've been having interesting conversations with students and members of the Piano Ninja Tricksters Club about what makes a professional sound like a professional. What is the difference basically between a professional pianist and an amateur pianist? Now, there are a million answers to that, but there's two at the top of my list are touch and time. And I have picked out some music for you that's very calming for me, so very appropriate to play right now, including what I just played, the Rhapsody and Blue theme. But this is a little more obvious. So let's first start with time. And I'm going to reword that even to call it pulse, because I talk all the time about cyclical rhythm. It's my first teaching episode I did in this podcast in season 1 was about cyclical rhythm, how to keep the rhythm always going. And that is part of it. But what that does for you as a musician is that it creates an inner pulse. That's why I'm not a huge metronome fan, because I don't want your pulse, your rhythm to be external. I want it to be internal. And so I'm going to play openings of a couple slow sections of music that you just absolutely have to have a real strong inner pulse. And as much as I hate to do this, and it's so challenging for me, I'm just going to show you first how you might play it if you want to sound like an amateur. So this is the opening, a beautiful arrangement I only recently discovered by my former Juilliard professor, Earl Wild, of the Marcello Oboe Concerto. He arranged it for piano. It's the Adagio from that. So if I didn't have a strong pulse and I didn't have a strong rhythm, I'm going to do my best. It would sound something like this. Just kills me to even play it like that. It's not even at all. So how do I get that strong pulse? It doesn't start at the first note. It starts before the first note. So before I even start, I've set the tempo in my head. I'm hearing bum, bum. All it is 6 middle C's. That's all it is. But it has to be so accurate right in rhythm and with this internal pulse that is going throughout this whole piece, because there's eighth notes through every single measure except one. So I'm going to be hearing those eighth notes. So I'm going to actually say that out loud. So I'm going to count the rhythm out loud so that you hear it, but I'm hearing it in my ear. Bum, 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 bum. So no matter what happened, no matter how many notes were added, this pulse is still very steady and always going. Now, that we'll talk a little bit later about when you add to like Chopin, you add some rubato. It's a little more complicated. I'm going to just stay with this topic for now. Of a piece that the beat is really, really steady. That doesn't mean like I took a little breath, but still that pulse is really there. I'm going to give you another example. So this is a piece that the Schubert G major, the big G major sonata, that starts, it's in 6/8 and starts with a really long note. And I am, no matter how, I've played this piece for decades and decades. No matter how long I've played it, I'm always going to be counting that beat. So again, I'm going to try and demonstrate how not to do it. And so what I'm going to basically do is I'm not going to count. I'm just going to guess. It's a long dotted, I don't have the score in front of me. It's a long dotted quarter, quarter, quarter. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1. So it's the whole 6/8 notes, and then a 16th going into the next beat. So I'm not going to count it. I'm just going to kind of guess where that falls. And maybe I'm right, but a lot of the time, maybe I'm not right. Is I have no idea whether it's right or wrong. I have no idea if I'm not counting. So I always want to set that beat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm hearing that before I start. That's what makes you sound like a professional. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Still counting 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So again, no matter how many decades I've played that piece, I am counting it every single time I play it. I want to be so accurate with that pulse, with that beat. And so now I'm going to go a little bit to touch, and I'm going to use these same pieces. Let's start with the Schubert. We'll do a sandwich effect. We'll do that backwards. So now I want to talk about touch in relation to something that I very rarely hear discussed, and it's so important. It's a little advanced, but it's just, I don't want to say it's advanced. It's simple, but takes some practicing. It doesn't just happen. So it's simple when you're aware of it, but it does take some practicing, which is, because it takes really some listening, which is always remembering that the speed have nothing to do with the tempo. We're not talking about tempo anymore, but the speed of which you press down a note on the piano determines the dynamic. And the speed of which you press determines the control you have over it. So that first chord in the Schubert is pianissimo. So the last thing I want to do is press that fast. It comes out too loud. So I am talking about, my hand is right, if you can't see me, my hand is on that G major chord, right on the key, but I am focusing on the speed of which I press the note down to the bottom until it sounds. Even when it's a faster note like that. Same here. So then I had two things going. I had the inner pulse that was going automatically, and also the concentration on how fast, or in this case, how slow I'm pressing the key. Now, let's take for an example the Chopin C minor Nocturne. This is, I am focused, again, it's that pulse, it's quarter notes. There's my inner pulse, very steady tempo. But my right hand is dropping with dead weight. It's real relaxed weight. So it's real singing sound. So now if I want to sound like an amateur, which I don't, obviously, I would push the sound. If you're watching, you can see me physically moving forward with my hand. It creates like a stopped sound. It's just not pleasant at all. And what I'm doing is I'm pressing the key fast. So it's like a jolt. You don't want that. You want it just rich, round sound. Just real relaxed. And so forth. So now I'm going to go back to the Adagio, the Marcello Adagio, and do the same thing. So I don't want to press these notes fast. I'm never going to have the control I want over. I'm pressing each note while I have that pulse going. I'm hearing the beat, and I'm pressing each note very slowly. Each chord really slowly, so that I have complete control over the dynamics. And so forth. I will, in another episode, I'll demonstrate you what happens when you want the sound loud, when it's forte. That's a whole nother episode. But it still applies. You're pressing the key faster, but you're doing it in a very relaxed motion. So if you want to sound like a professional, those are two major areas to work on, is your touch, which really also has to do with how you're listening, because you want to hear it first in your ear and then get that touch, your touch, and your time, your pulse, your inner pulse. So I hope that helps you sound like a professional. It's really fun to work. Like, it's fun to sound like a professional. Try these things. Like, take a Chopin Nocturne, take a Chopin Prelude, take you could take Czerny. You could go, Hannon. You could press hear the difference in sound of when you're pressing each note slowly than when you're pressing each note fast. It has a different sound. So start to experiment with that. And you could do it with scales too. I actually do advise you to try it on music that it's easier, because still it always comes down to, how can I make this easier? So one of the ways is start it with music that's easier, an exercise, a scale, a Hannon, then go to something more complex like a Chopin Nocturne. So I hope that helped. I am going to sign off with some music that's still coming for me. So I am just going to continue on, I think, with this Marcello, which is so beautiful, this arrangement of Earl Wild's. And I'll be back next week. We'll see if we know the results of the presidential election by then. I don't know. And in the meantime, it's stressful. So find music that soothes your soul, that calms you, that relaxes you, whether you're playing it or listening to it. Music is here for healing. It's here to bring us together, and it has it's a universal language. You don't need to understand English. It doesn't matter what language you're in. So bring music into your life this time period to open up your heart. That's really what it's all about. That's really why we play piano to begin with. So enjoy. I'm going to sign off with this. I'm going to continue on with the Marcello.